and the children are dismissed for the children's church classes. And let's give the worship team and just all of the young people, let's give them a round of applause. I mean, I know they don't ask for it and they don't do it as a performance. They come up here to serve and to minister, and we need to praise and just thank them for being servants, for being ministers to each and every one of us. And the work that they put in, the energy that they put in, giving up weeknights to come into practice and to be here early on Sundays is just absolutely a ministry and a servant's heart with them. And so we're excited about the things that are coming up with the worship team. And as we have several of the ones that were up here this morning, Caitlin Wilson, I forgot you. I'm sorry. You're not this time? Well, then I take it back. I take it back. But you're leaving soon, though, right? In a month. Okay. So there's several of them that were up here on stage that are getting ready. And while we see the gaping holes as a worship team, we see the gaping holes that these people are going to leave. We're also excited because now it gives opportunity for others to step up. And we're going to call them up, and we want them to step out of their comfort zone and to step up and to begin to move forward in what God has called them to do. And, for a lot of them, it probably wouldn't be their first thing that they would think of doing as a teenager, of coming in every Sunday morning to get up on stage and to be in front of everybody. It takes a lot to get up here and to expose yourself to making mistakes. We all make mistakes when we're up here. Musicians make mistakes, singers make mistakes, and it's a lot to overcome, but they do it out of a heart of serving, of just a desire to help lead us into a place of worship. And before I get started, they're sitting beside each other, so this works out really well for me. Trey, you're getting ready to take off as well, right? And Ethan, you're going to be leaving, you're going to be going, and as I was getting ready for this week, I really felt God was speaking to me about both of you, and individually. I know you guys look like brothers, so I could just do it together. But for Ethan, I really just felt God was just speaking this word of just focus on who He is. As you're getting ready, both of them are getting ready. For those of you who don't know, both of them are getting ready to go down for the Global Bridge program in the Dominican. And I really feel like God is picking you up and He's moving you to a place away from all of the other distractions that have been around you since the day you were born. He's picking you up and He's moving you, and He's really calling you to focus on who He is. And when you come back, I really want to hear you come in and say, I learned, and I have a completely new relationship with who God is, because my focus on Him allowed God to reveal Himself to me in a brand new way. And that's just what I hear God speaking, and just to go down there and focus on Him. Focus on nothing else except drawing closer to God. And for Trey, I'm going to be completely blunt and honest with you. Statistically, you should not be doing what you're doing. With where you come from and with everything that is about your life, statistically, most of America would say that you shouldn't be as successful as you are right now. And I truly give the credit of that to God, because He has an incredible calling on your life. He has called you up into leadership. And when the world would look at, at maybe where you're from and everything about what it was growing up for you, and just kind of, just kind of fade off into the background, you have continued to find yourself at the forefront. And as you go down there, God's speaking clearly to me again on this one is leadership. God has called you to a place of leadership. And you have done a great job of supporting other people around you while you've been here. And you've done a fantastic job of always being a support. But again, now you're being taken away from that point. And He did it a little bit last year. He did it a little bit a year ago, and really took you out of your comfort zone. And now we're going even further. And you're going to have to begin, and I'm begging you, and I hear God just continuing to push you to that, of God has brought you to this place because He has leadership in His eyes and in His mind for who you are. And you have already defeated all the odds that could come against you. And you have stood strong, and now you're going to go and minister to young boys and to young kids who have had the same odds stacked against them, and you can connect with them in a way nobody else can. and you're going to lead them. You're going to lead them, man. So come back, both of you, come back more focused, come back stronger leaderships than what you've ever been before, and we're excited to hear in a couple of months and in a year and 2 years from now what it is that God's done for you. So we will be praying for you. This whole congregation will be praying for you. And for the rest of you guys that are going, this place, every Sunday, every day of the week, we're going to be remembering who you guys are because you are a part of FFM. You are a part of who we are. And it's not just a teenager that's leaving and going either to school or to another country, but we have invested our hearts and our lives. We have given. I mean, guys like Ryan Yesh have given just an incredible amount of time into who you are. And don't resent the fact that you come from a little, a small town in the middle of nowhere, because that has made you who you are. That has made you who you are. And you are more prepared to go and to minister to the nations than almost any teenager growing up in the middle of a large urban or suburban area, because of a people in a small town who have looked at you and said, you are more than worth investing into. And I don't want to threaten you by saying, don't fail us. It's not a threat, but it's a promise of knowing that I can promise anybody here, knowing that you guys will be successful because we know who you are. So let's give them a hand one more time. And I'm excited. Tyler's already been 1 year down there. It's a great program. We have a close relationship with Global Bridge and with everywhere else where they're going as far as for college. Some of them are going to a college where it's a really difficult place to be a Christian but we want to remind you that that light is going to shine the brightest in that darkest place. So go shine a light, go be a light to a dark place. And for those of you guys who are going with Global Bridge, man, we're just excited of the path you're going to lay. Because it's going to be this. This is what it's going to be, is in 2 years from now or 3 years from now, somebody's going to apply to go down to Global Bridge, and they are going to get an exemption because of the great kids that we have sent down. Where'd she go? There you are. We sent, with you going down there already once, Sydney, and just laying the bridge, and you guys are building upon that. And there's going to be other kids that follow and who are given opportunities they might not normally get because of what you guys are going to go and do down there as well. All right, I'm done with that sermon. Pray for them every day. They're leaving home. They're leaving, when we have everything that we have at our fingertips in the country that we live in, we have everything that we could possibly ever desire, including air conditioning. You guys are going down, and they don't have it. If you do need it, you got to catch a ride with Lowell to the. Oh my goodness. You know what? They're next. The media team's next. Wow. All right. I'm surprised they didn't put rambling speaker instead of guest speaker at the end. All right, guys, I get it. Here we go. Moving on. This morning, going right into to the same thing, I want to talk to you guys this morning about confidence. And the title of the sermon this morning is, Where Does Your Confidence Lie? Where's your confidence at? So we're going to talk about a couple of things where, the easy answer to say is that, of course, my confidence lies in God. That's where my confidence is at. But there are so many other places that we in our humanness, we turn to find our confidence. So this morning we're going to be taking an example from Saul and the King Saul and what he can teach us. So if you want to turn with me to 1 Samuel 10. And we're going to read just a couple of verses there, starting at verse 17. So 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 17. And Then Samuel called the people together to the Lord at Mizpah and said to the children of Israel, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt and delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of all kingdoms and from those who oppressed you. But you have today rejected your God, who himself saved you from all your adversities and your tribulations, and you have said to him, 'No, set a king over us.' Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your clans." And when Samuel had caused all of the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. When he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was chosen, and Saul the son of Kish was chosen. But when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, "Has the man come here yet?" And the Lord answered, "There he is, hidden among the equipment." So they ran and brought him from there, and when he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the other people from his shoulders upward. And Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see him who the Lord has chosen, that there is no one like him among all the people?" So all the people shouted and said, "Long live the king." Father, this morning we thank you that you have brought each and every one of us here for a very specific purpose. And so, God, I ask that we would hear the word in a new way, and God, that you would deliver your message in a new way, and God, that we could go from here not the same as what we came, but we would go away changed and with a newfound confidence in who you are, and a newfound idea in our minds where we need to place our confidence. In Jesus' name. All right, so we're talking about Saul and King Saul, and we're talking with the Israelites here, and they come up, and you can hear a little bit of, as God's kind of talking about all of the things I've done for you, and yet you've still rejected me. And you know, that's part of the consequences of living in the sinful world of ours, is that we face problems. And the Israelites here were facing a problem, and it's something that none of us are immune to, but how do we face our problems? And the source of our confidence says a lot about our faith. Often we look at our own strength and ability, we look at our intelligence to figure out solutions to the problems. We might try to use our might and our power to keep us safe. There's those who hope and for luck and for chance and to be on their side, and that the stars will align and be in their favor. And then when there's none of these are working, then we just simply seek to dull the pain in our life through amusement and entertainment. And we do all of this instead of running to the only one who can help us. And that, in a nutshell, is the story of King Saul. See, King Saul is tall, dark, and handsome. And if Brenna was here, I'd tease him that he's at least 2 out of the 3. And he could be, you figure out the one that he's not. But of course he would be the ideal king, at least in the thinking of us as people. Because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the outside. And because the people of Israel here, they are looking at having confidence in human ability. So that's my point number 1, is confidence in human ability. And it was important for a king to be strong because he was the one who would lead his troops into battle. And often a nation would choose one of their best fighters to be the king. The king was always out in front in the battle. So the fact that God chose this giant of a man caused the people, of course, to be elated. If they had chosen somebody of my height and my stature, everybody would be a little bit more nervous. I can't even see over the front line, so how am I supposed to know what's going on? But they chose somebody tall. They chose somebody who was a warrior. They chose somebody who, probably brought a little intimidation to the enemy. He was from the right family. He had what we would call blue blood, and it says in 1 Samuel 9:1, there was a Benjamite, a man of standing. And goes on to describe Saul's father, and he had a son named Saul, an impressive young man, without equal among the Israelites, a head taller than any of the others. Not only was Saul tall, he was good looking. That's what the meaning of impressive is in that scripture. So he's all of these things, plus he's from a wealthy family. So in our human minds, we would look at him and we would say, that's the guy we need in charge. That's the guy who we need leading us into battle. And if there's anyone from an earthly perspective who we would make a good candidate for king, it would be Saul. But we can't trust our human ability. We can't just look on the external. And later in 1 Samuel 16:7, when God is talking to Samuel and he goes to replace Saul, God reminds him. This is how much that he needed to be reminded. God had to remind Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. That tells you a little bit about what Saul must have been to have to remind the prophet of God when he goes to replace him, don't just become fixated on his outward appearance. Don't second guess what I'm speaking to you just because of what he looks like and who he is and the persona that he puts on. But God has rejected him. And see, the Lord does not look at the things that man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. See, in fact, we see that even though we might expect Saul to be the perfect candidate to lead the people when they look at him, where do they first find him? Where's he at when they even go to put him into leadership? He's in the baggage. He's in the luggage. He's hiding. And so, we think about it today. If, the next presidential election, and we elect the next president of the United States, and at the inauguration, we go to inaugurate him, and the media finds out that he's hiding in the luggage because he's scared or he doesn't want to be brought out. I mean, I'd say there's probably some red flags going up really quick, right? What kind of person elected, to be the leader of a nation hides when it's time to put them in charge? We want somebody who's standing at the front. We want somebody who's strong and powerful, who's out front saying, here I am, I'm ready. Put the crown on me, let's go. We're going to go win the battle. But in our lives today, let's look a little bit at what does this mean. So, far too often we judge others by all of these external factors. If someone is good looking or they have a noted name in the area, that's who we want to be friends with. For those, most of you are graduating, but going back to high school, there's this factor of being in the cool clique or being, with the right people, the right name. And we carry that on right into our churches. There are many churches that have a reputation for being the acceptable place for the country club set to go, or for all the movers and shakers, that's where they're going to be at. And people will go because that's the group of people that they want to be around, that they want to maybe have a little bit of whatever it is they have rub off on them. A little bit of that success rub off on them. And anytime we make our decisions, make our decisions based on friendships and associations with others based on popularity, we have fallen into a trap of the devil. And do you find yourself intentionally avoiding some people because they seem beneath you? We go from trying to spend time with certain individuals to staying away from people because of them being beneath us. And that's what I love about VBS. I love about VBS because all of these kids are here and they don't care. They don't care who their best friend is or who the new friend is that's sitting right beside them. They don't care. They'll sit down with Miss Betty at their, all they care about when they get to you is getting their snack. And maybe seeing somebody having fun or somebody doing the worm on up front. But that's what their focus is. Their focus is on who's my new buddy beside me, and it has nothing to do with if they're good enough to be in the same group that they are. And maybe they don't seem like they're in the same social class, and the house isn't quite as nice, or they don't drive the car as nice of a car as what they need to, and they don't eat at as nice of restaurants. And we are in a world that is filled with these prejudices. If you can go one day without hearing something or somebody or someone on the radio, on the TV, or right next to you talking about the problems we face in America with prejudice, that you are completely inside of a box. Completely. It is what we face every day. And the last thing we need to do is allow it to enter into the church. When we serve the God who created every person in this place, in this community, in this state, in this country, on this planet, if we truly believe that we serve a God who created each and every one of them, and we truly believe that He sent His only Son to die for each and every one of them, and He has accepted them into His kingdom, but yet we who have sacrificed little cannot be accepting of them, it's time for a heart change. In Galatians 2, and this was just fascinating to me, in Galatians 2, couple of verses there in 11 and 13, when Paul declares that when Peter came to Antioch, he had to oppose him publicly. We're talking about Peter. Peter, he's a pretty big deal. He had to oppose him publicly, speaking strongly against what he was doing because it was wrong. Because what he was doing is when he first arrived, he ate with the Gentile Christians, those who didn't bother with circumcision, and that was a big deal at that point in time. They were trying to decide what rules are we going to have and what rules aren't we going to have. And then afterward, when some of the Jewish friends of James came along, then all of a sudden Peter wouldn't eat with the Gentiles anymore because he was afraid of what the legalists would say. Then he became nervous about, what were people going to think about him. And because of that, other Jewish Christians followed his hypocrisy, and even Barnabas was influenced to join them in this. So our actions speak. Our actions of who we put our faith into, of who we put our trust into, of who we put our confidence in, doesn't just affect us in our lives, but it begins to affect those around us. And it begins to affect our youth group, and it begins to affect our kids and our children, because they see where we put our confidence. Second mistake we make in choosing where to put our confidence is putting our confidence in human intelligence. And it's easy. It's easy because we all have the answer to the problem, don't we? We all have the solution. We sit down and we look at a problem and we start to think through it, and I'm a problem solver. That's just something that frustrates me to no end, is I can't sit down and just let something be and somebody take care of it. I got to get into it. I got to jump into it and find myself in a place of where, you know what, we're going to work through it and we're going to find a solution. And I've had to learn. It's something I've really been working on with my wife, is when there's a problem, of not being the one who just gives a solution. All right, here you go. This is easy. We're going to take care of this. Just not dependent upon the incredible amount of intelligence that I have, right? I can't depend on that. Right, guys? This is an area where Saul messes up time after time, and we see it first in 1 Samuel 13, verse 7. The Philistines, an enemy people that were to the west along the seacoast, they've been oppressing the Jews. And they are far superior people technologically and in many areas to where they could at any point be a major threat to the Israelites. And Saul's son Jonathan has to go and stir it up. He goes and he draws first blood and going to a military outpost and attacking it. And now the Philistines are mad. They're a little upset. You came after us, you killed our people. Yeah, we're mad. And so the Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers, what the Bible describes as numerous as the sand of the seashore. I'd be a little scared too. And they're not just coming to work out a truce. They're coming to get their revenge. They're coming for blood. And when the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard-pressed, they hid in the caves, they hid in thickets among the rocks and in pits and in cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. And Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. See, Saul has an enemy army. It's vast, it's powerful, it's at his front door, and he is terrified. And he's trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? What should I do? And Samuel told him to wait. That's a scary word. Am I right? Who here likes to wait? Who here just likes to, when you're in the middle of a major situation, somebody's knocking on your door, the enemy is coming after you, and God tells you just to wait and to just trust Him. That's the first thing we want to do, isn't it? Absolutely the first thing. No, we've got to do something. We have to be men of action. We have to be a people of action. And in chapter 13, verse 8, it tells us that Saul waited for 7 days, the time that was set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal. And Saul's men began to scatter. And Samuel said to wait, but he's not here. The troops are scared. Something needs to be done. So Saul takes action. So he said, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. And just as he finished, Guess who shows up? Samuel arrives. And Saul went out to greet him, and Samuel asked, what have you done? And Saul replied that when I saw the men, he begins right away, he begins to place the blame on somebody else. He goes, when I saw the men were scattering, that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling to come against us, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So first he starts out by blaming somebody else for his mistake, and then he turns it to spiritual, right away of, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And let's try and forget the fact that I very clearly and distinctly went against what you told me to do. But what I did was still spiritual. What I did was still, following after what God would tell me to do. And Samuel says, you acted foolishly. You have not kept the command of the Lord your God, that the Lord your God gave you. And if you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. So Saul did what we would look at as being the right thing, right? Saul did the right thing. He offered up a burnt offering. He offered up a sacrifice to the Lord. He would say that he sought after who God was. But what he failed in is that he did the right thing, but at the wrong time. And the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. It's still wrong. And that's where our human intelligence comes in, where we depend on our own human intelligence, where we have confidence in who we are because we begin to seek to get out ahead of who God is. We try to get in front of who God is. Because, God has promised these things. God has promised all of this stuff to me in His time. But it's not happening in the time frame that we have dictated it needs to happen in. So we begin to work up solutions. We begin to come up with our own ways of solving the problem. See, what was Saul thinking? He was thinking that he had to do something. He had to do something. So he used his own human reasoning to come up with a plan. But it was a bad plan because it was at the wrong time. And any time, this is a point that I want you to hear this morning, any time we disobey God to do something that we think is better, so any time we disobey God to do something that we think is better, we are sinning. It's sin. It's straight, plain and clear, we're sinning. Saul was disobeying what Samuel had told him, but he felt like he needed to do something. And sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is to do nothing. When God says, just wait on me, we don't like that. We don't like that. And we come up with all of the right spiritual answers, don't we? Well, God, I need to go do this because there's a lost and dying world, and so I need to go to this point of ministry, and this is what I need to go do. Right? We can come up with the spiritual answer to make God sound like He's wrong. And sometimes we're just like Saul in that we know what God says, but we don't want to wait on His timetable. And that's why, I'm sure, Nick, you can vouch for this one. That's why Americans have how much in credit card debt? $20,000 in credit card debt is what I could find. Because we don't want to wait. When it's time to get something, pull it out, swipe it, and end up talking to Phil or to Nick King about how you fix your problems. Right? Because we can't wait. Because we have become a country and a people that is reliant upon satisfying our needs immediately. We want to get what we want when we want it. And sometime, if you have a chance, if you haven't done it yet, you need to. I know we've talked about getting ready. Usually we do it at the beginning of the year of getting into the FPU class, Financial Peace University, and beginning to just absolutely changing not only your own life, but it will change your kids' lives and it will change generations after you. Because you have laid down a foundation of stability And you've laid down, you've taken away this idea that you need to be satisfied immediately, and you begin to teach life lessons that will carry over to your kids and your grandkids and further down the line. Now, a really difficult one. Nervous on this one. Sometimes people use their human intelligence or their lack of human intelligence in choosing a mate, finding a wife or a husband. And because they've become so desperate on finding the right person, they disregard all the red lights that others will see in that person, and instead we will hear the excuses of, well, if they only knew that person the way I know them. Or the saddest one is, well, I think if I can get them to come to church and I can change who they are, I can make them into a better person. And we all do, and we're not looking just around at single people or those who have had any crisis or problems. We all do it. Not necessarily maybe, with a spouse or in our dating relationships, but we all do it in some areas of our life where we look at a situation and we decide in our own human intelligence we can change that situation. But years later, down the road, we find that maybe the people that were speaking into our life aren't quite as blind as what we thought they were. See, it is foolish to place confidence in our human intelligence, and Saul messes up in this area again in chapter 15 when they fight against the Amalekites, and God tells them, and I'll just kind of go through this story fairly quickly, but where God talks to him about going and destroying everything. And if you want to read about blood and guts and gore, there's some parts of the Old Testament that are going to absolutely shock you. This is not a kind, cuddly commandment here. This is not go to this people and lead them all to Jesus kind of directive. This is go and do not spare them. This is put to death the men, the women, the children, the infants, the cattle, the sheep, the camels, the donkeys, everything. Lay it bare. But Saul, once again, he messes up because when Samuel comes back to the camp after the battle and he sees all the things that Saul had taken for himself, he confronts Saul about it. And again, right away, Saul begins to place the blame somewhere else. We do that all the time, don't we? We mess up. We rely on ourselves to come up with a solution. And then when that solution fails, the first thing we do is we say, well, if this person over here had come and helped me, then it wouldn't have failed. Or, even ones that we'll hear is somebody will step out to do something that maybe needs some patience or needs a little bit of time, isn't quite in the timing that it should be, or isn't something that they should be seeking out after. And they blame the church because the church didn't wholly get behind them and do all the hard work and make it successful. So they blame the church. They blame the leadership. They blame Pastor Don. They'll blame Rod. Rod, you messed it up again. And so Rod builds these huge giant shoulders to carry the weight of the world, right? If you're going to go and ask leadership, I'll be careful. I'm being careful, Rod. If you're going to go and ask them for knowledge and wisdom and what God is speaking, that as their leadership, that they should pass on to you in a situation, listen to them. Listen. Either don't waste their time or listen. Because at that point now, God has directly spoken to you in that situation, and you're going against it, which goes back to the original point of that sinning. But I encourage you to go and talk to your leadership and to hear what they have to say, and then listen. And as we go through this story, it continues to go where Saul continues to blame everybody else. And he talks about how the soldiers did it, and they of course they destroyed all of the weak ones. They destroyed everything that wasn't the nicest and the best in their human opinion. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to keep the good stuff to offer a sacrifice. Oh, all of a sudden the spiritualness comes back in, right? All of a sudden we're back talking Jesus language, right? We're praying in the KJV, in the King James Version now. Because, well, we didn't want to destroy it because we needed it for sacrifice. No, you didn't destroy it because you wanted it for yourself and you were being disobedient to what God had told you to do. And Saul continues to try and talk back, as far as that he went on the mission that the Lord assigned him to, and he completely destroyed the Amalekites, and he brought back the king, and but the soldiers, they took the sheep and cattle from the plunder, and the best of what was devoted to God in order to sacrifice it. And Samuel's just like, stop. Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? That's powerful. Does the Lord delight in success or in your obedience? Success doesn't always feel like it occurs just because we're being obedient to God. There are many times where we are fully, wholeheartedly obedient to God, and we can still feel like we weren't successful. But here, Samuel is making it clear the Lord delights more in the obedience of the voice of the Lord than all of the religious things that we want to give to God. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. Saul uses his human reasoning, but it is flawed. He tries to claim his innocence, but Saul doesn't let him off the hook. So in verse 24, he finally owns up to his actions, and he says to Samuel, I have sinned, I violated the Lord's command and your instructions. I was afraid of the people. So he starts out good, but now we're going to go to, I was afraid of the people, so I gave in to them. I'm the king. I'm the one who, when I speaks, they listen, but I was afraid of them. So I gave in to them, and now I beg you, forgive my sin and come back to me so that I may worship the Lord. And again, Saul here, he is manipulating the situation. He is trying to spin the actions so that he looks like he did the religiously right thing. And he says, okay, I was wrong. It really doesn't matter. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next thing. And that's the difference. That's the difference we see between Saul and between David. David did a lot of wrong things. We read through them. If you keep reading, when David comes along after this, David messed up a lot. And we look at it and go, why wasn't David treated the way Saul was treated? And that's because God looks on the heart. And while David did make mistakes, his heart posture was put into the right place of forgiveness and laying himself before the Lord, where Saul didn't carry that same attitude. And anytime we try to justify the wrongs that we're doing, again, we're sinning. When we try and justify of why we did it and what we're doing, it's not intelligence, it's just dumb. It's just not there. And lastly, the third point I've got is our confidence in human entertainment. And this is kind of a little bit of a powder keg maybe waiting to go off, but we all do it. We all find ourselves doing this. When we are troubled or distressed, we find no other source, and we find no other source of confidence, then we try and find something that gives us relief from our fears, right? We try and escape. We try and find an escape. And Saul does that as well. He knows God has left him. He knows his time is limited, and God sends a troubling spirit to Saul, and his heart grows heavy. And what does he do? Instead of dealing with the guilt and confessing his sin so that he could have a clear conscience, instead he finds something to ease his spirit. And that's where David would come in and play the harp. And we do. I admit it. I do the same thing. I find a lot of comfort and a lot of kind of release and escape through music. I love music as an escape. And where I've gotten better at it is I use the music as a way of drawing closer to God. Not as a way of kind of, just putting myself into a deeper funk, but of using it as a tool to draw closer to who God is. And Saul uses this music as an escape, but for the wrong reasons. And many people do, and they get frustrated. So, You get mad. I remember in high school, we'd lose a basketball game and get mad, get in the car, crank up the music, have it, thumping, and just try and escape from the fact that we lost a silly basketball game. But it was a big deal. And so we're going to go and we're going to find a way of releasing that anger and to try and mask the pain. Others, as we get a little more serious, others use alcohol or drugs. Or, you get home from work and it's been a rough day, so you're going to just have a couple of drinks and then a couple more drinks. Or, they get home and something's not right at home, and so they become frustrated with your wife or with your husband, and so you find another reason to have a shot or two or a can or two, and the kids aren't cleaning up the way they're supposed to clean, and all of a sudden we've come up with every silly reason we can think of to try and find to okay it in our own hearts to find an escape. And along with that, with that escape, we suddenly see all of those worries begin to vanish, but so has your discretion and your ability to think logically inside of that escape. Some use movies or novels, living out their fantasies through a media where they can escape who they are and seek to be a person that they wish they are. And this is so prevalent in the society, especially among young people, but it's beginning to spread all the way up through the older generations of using Facebook, of living out this fantasy life in our minds through Facebook of what other people are doing. And we catch this, 1 second glimpse of their life out of the week, and they, of course, you never post, a picture before you have your makeup on, right? You never post a picture that doesn't make you look good, right? Everything we post, everything we do on Facebook is about making our life look as amazing as possible. And then other people begin to see that because we want other people to think our life is amazing. And other people look at that and go, man, if I just had their life. Or we follow Kardashians. Good. If you don't know who the Kardashians are, ask one of them. I ain't going to take time to explain it. I mean, they can put a post out about their cat jumping up on the furniture, and what will it get, like 10 million retweets? It's ridiculous. We'll see movies where 50 Shades of Grey. It ain't real. They're selling you a product. And you begin to believe that something like that is real, and it's not. In the same way that these action heroes, MacGyver, I'm sorry, I'm going to break some hearts. MacGyver's not real. There was a great picture of the actor who played MacGyver along the side of the road looking at his vehicle, and he couldn't fix it. And it's like, how messed up is the world when MacGyver can't fix his own car? But it's not. But yet we want to get wrapped up and we want to get lost in this entire fantasy in our life of think how amazing it would be to get on a train in Moscow and to, go rescue, some kid that was kidnapped, from the United States, and we stand up to him, we give him some major, some real boss words, just like, yeah, I'm the king in here now. And then you take them all out and you go home the hero. I mean, we wrap ourselves up in these fantasies, and movies, they're great. They're great to watch. I mean, obviously, I'm not flying out into deep space, although it'd be fun. I mean, it would be fun. Who wouldn't want to go flying out into deep space until they show up and blow the ship apart, and then you have nowhere to go but dead. But we have to have this separation between what is fantasy and what is real. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying movies and to entertain ourselves and to be a part of what's going on, but to try and lose ourselves inside of these different forms of entertainment and to try and drown our sorrows, whether it's with alcohol or with movies or with entertainment, and we try and drown ourselves in this to escape all of the things that are going on in our lives, instead of turning to the one who can handle them, instead of turning to the one who wants to help you walk through them and to bring you to a new place, we turn and we try and mask it. But see, God, He does not call us to escape from reality, but to see ourselves as we truly are and to enter into our worlds and to find peace in Him. Peace is not found as we run from Him in our problems, but when we run to God with our problems. That's when we find peace. In Psalms chapter 119, verse 165, those who love your law have great peace and do not stumble. That's a promise. That's a fantastic promise. If you are struggling this morning with where your confidence is at, and you're feeling like you don't know who to turn to or where to turn to, and you've been struggling in that area, write this verse down. Psalms 119, 165. Those who love your law have great peace and do not stumble. The true source of our confidence and the only source of confidence is when we put our confidence in God. And I think all of us know that this morning. The only problem is that while we know this, sometimes by the way we live, we deny it as true. We have a God who, Hebrews reminds us, has said, I will never fail you, and I will never forsake you. Listen to that. I will never fail you. Alcohol will fail you. Entertainment will fail you. Everything in this life, your own mind, your own body, it will fail you. Everything in this world will fail you, but God will not fail you, and He will not forsake you. We have a God of whom in 1 Peter, He reminds us that all power is His forever and ever. We serve a God who has all power. We don't serve an idol sitting in a shrine that if you walk up and push it, can't stop itself from tipping over. We serve a God who is all-powerful. A God that in Psalms 112 tells us that those who are righteous will be long remembered. They do not fear bad news. They confidently trust the Lord to care for them. They are confident and fearless and can face their foes triumphantly. Who wants to be that this morning? Who wants to face their fears triumphantly, and who wants to face their problems triumphantly? They give generously to those in need. Their good deeds will never be forgotten. They will have influence and honor. Isn't that amazing how that works? That we try so hard in our own lives, through our own might, through our own power, we try so hard to achieve honor and to achieve financial stability, and we try to achieve all of these things. And yet when we forsake all of it and we put all of our confidence in God, that's what He promises to give us. And sometimes when circumstances start to look bad, we think that, well, God's failing me. He doesn't seem to be answering our prayers, and we begin to get discouraged. You know, maybe there's too much money or too much month at the end of the money. We've run out of money and we've got 10 days to go and there's some big bills to be paid yet. Or there just seems like there's no hope for your marriage, or there's no hope for your kids and the relationship that you have with them. And we just had a young man last week up in Kalamazoo that we're praying for, just praying for this bringing back this restitution with his brother. And we have, through a situation that would just seem absolutely, impossible, we have full faith that God can do it. And if we have full faith that God can do something for somebody else, because it can be easy, can it? Just listen to me for a little bit. When we hear somebody get up and they're praying for healing in some area, it is easier to have faith and confidence for them than it is for ourselves. Am I right? It can be that way. It can be. So when we are tempted to look somewhere at something else for our confidence, that's when we truly need to remember that God is with us. God has not forsaken us. And in 1 Peter again, he reminds us, so if you are suffering according to God's will, keep on doing what is right. And trust yourself to God who made you. Again, for He will never fail you. Said it again and again and again. He will never fail you. I get to have my niece play this morning. I'm excited. She does an absolutely amazing job. And this morning I want to ask this, and we're going to have a little bit of time here at the end. And I purposely wanted to have a little bit of time here at the end to where we can really dive into this and we can really seek after what it is that God is speaking this morning. And this morning what I want to ask you is, where is your confidence? Where's it at? Let's not give the spiritual answers this morning. Let's truly look at our heart. Let's truly look inside of who we are. Let's truly stop and think of when I come up against something, where do I turn to first? What do I seek out first? So what I want to do, I want to end with a few action steps to consider. So let's go ahead and stand, and so I'll make you mobile, make it easier, make it a little mobile for you. And hey Trey, could you hit number 2 on the lights for me there? We'll bring the lights down a little bit. I just want to spend some time, and I really do. I want us to think about it this morning. Where is our confidence at? And let's just put aside some of those answers that we come up with. Let's stop blaming, the soldiers and the people they did. Let's stop blaming the kids. Let's stop blaming the spouse. Let's stop blaming the situations. Let's stop blaming work. Let's take time this morning to truly focus on ourselves, and in where, in some of these areas, we can begin to turn our confidence from maybe ourselves or from others and turn it over to God. So we'll go through a couple of these, and if you want prayer in any of these areas, as I'm talking through them, I'm going to go ahead and just make it available now to where you are more than welcome during that time to come up, and we'll have others come and pray with you. And what I love about, if you're a visitor here, what I love about this congregation, what I've become so attached to about this people is just the absolute unashamedness when it comes to laying things before God. It is not one where you go up front and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to stand back and we're going to whisper about, oh, what do they got going on? That's not who we are. Instead, we rejoice. We rejoice when we see lives change. We rejoice when we know that people have laid their problems at the altar. So we'll start with human ability. So I encourage you this morning, if you want to pray in this area, to pray for humility. Again, if you want to come up and you want to have somebody pray with you, you're welcome to that. Or if you're right where you're at, if you want to raise your hand and have somebody come and pray with you, we can do that as well. Somebody will meet you right where you're at. So if you have been relying on your human ability and you're ready to turn it over and to pray for humility as an individual, and we need to do it as a church and as a nation, but if you're ready to do that, then I'll encourage you to raise your hand or to come forward this morning and begin to lay it at the altar before God. See, in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, it reminds us that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, it takes humility to step out. Am I right? It takes humility. They will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven. So if you feel like God, there's been a wall, and I talked about it at the beginning, if there's been a wall between who you are and where you feel God is, and there's a wall there, this is the best step you can take this morning, because there's a promise right here that He will hear you from heaven, and He will forgive the sin, and He will heal the land. That's a promise. So if that's you this morning, we'll go ahead and we'll close our eyes. And for those of you who are going to pray with people, if you look around, if that's you this morning and you need prayer in this area, I'll ask you to raise your hand or come forward and we will pray with you. In our human intelligence, the second one, pray for wisdom from God. Again, He promises. He promises in James 1, if you need wisdom, if you want to know what it is that God wants you to do, ask Him. That seems simple, doesn't it? It seems too easy. We want to make it hard, right? We want to make it difficult, don't we? If you want to know what God wants you to do, ask Him. And He will gladly tell you. He will gladly tell you. And He will not resent you asking. But when you ask Him, be sure that you really expect Him to answer. Don't just ask it in passing. Be absolutely certain that you are expecting an answer from Him. For a doubtful mind is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. And people like that, again, what it's saying in James, people like that should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Again, I go back to, it's easier to have faith for somebody else than it can be for yourself. So I'm asking you this morning, if you truly desire in this area to receive wisdom and to receive knowledge and to begin to take those steps in placing your confidence wholly on God, don't just ask it hoping that it will work. Ask it knowing that you can have confidence in God to maintain His word and to keep the word that He's given to you. That He will surely and gladly tell you. So if that's you this morning in that area, and you feel like you've been relying and placing your confidence on your own intelligence, and again, I'll ask if you want to raise your hand and have somebody come and pray with you, we would gladly do that. And lastly, I have human entertainment, and I think I'm going to just make this more about if you've wrapped yourself up in the things in this world or in abuses, whether it be alcohol or drugs, or if you have found any other way to escape from the reality of life. And instead of escaping to and calling out to and crying out to God, you have found other things to fill your life. And I'm going to ask you to reevaluate the part that pleasure and entertainment in all of these vices plays in your life. Addiction is powerful. And nobody in here is denying that. Addiction is powerful. The greater thing than that is that we have not only the power of God, but we have the power of family in this place to stand with you and help you walk through that. And we see story after story of people who have been set free from addiction, who have been set free from pornography, who have been set free from alcohol and drug abuse, who have been set free from anything that has taken over their life. And they have replaced God with this addiction. There are men and there are women who will stand in this place with you and who will stand with you after we have left this place and gone to the next week and the next week. They will stand with you because they want to see you be successful in what God has called you to do. So again, with eyes closed, just to be conscious of those who are truly seeking after what God is doing. If you are struggling in something, an addiction this morning, and you desire freedom. And this one I won't call you to come up front. I really want to make this easy for God to meet you. I want to prove that God will meet you right where you're at. If that's you this morning, raise your hand and we're going to have somebody come pray with you. Again, if you ask for anything, the Lord doesn't resent it. You are His child. We might tell them no, but we don't resent our children for asking for something. But we want that confidence, that comfort with who they are for them to come and to ask anything of us because they trust and they have confidence in who we are as parents. And that's who I want you to view God as this morning, that Father. So, Caitlin, I know you're not leaving yet, but I probably won't get to be up here again before you do leave. So the word that I feel God has spoken for you is as you go down to YWAM, God's going to reveal Himself to you as a father in a way that you could never imagine. He's going to be the father. He's going to be a father to you that not only builds upon what your dad has poured into your life, but He's going to become a father to you in a way that completely satisfies every desire that you have in your heart for this life. He is. He's going to become that father. An intimate, close relationship with Him. And you're going to have faith and trust in Him like you could never have expected as you leave here. You can imagine, you can try your hardest to imagine what it might be like. But He's going to blow those expectations. He's absolutely going to blow them away. And He's going to call you into a closer relationship with Him and then lead you on to more things. So as we close up, I want to ask all of the teens, whether you're leaving this week or even by the end of the year, Sydney, if you want to raise your hand and have everybody turn and let's stretch our arms towards them and pray for them. Most of them are leaving this Sunday. And if you want to come up and if you want to lay hands on them, you know what, let's just, guys, if you wouldn't mind, just coming right up here across the front. I know Don did this last Sunday, but it's my turn. Don's gone. He can't stop me. If you are leaving to go for college or to down with Global Bridge, which is college, but if you're going to be going away at all, thank you. Feel welcome to come up and lay your hands on them, to come up and surround them. That's a lot of kids. Come on, we ain't going to have anybody left. So let's come up and surround them. You don't even have to have a relationship with them, but know that they are the fruit of the work that you've poured out. Lord, what an amazing group. I mean, I look back 10 years ago, and if you had told me what this group would look like, of young men and women that are going out, and we're not just saying that like a high school graduation, they're going to go change the world, God. They truly are going to go and make changes in the world. And they're going to leave behind a lot of sad parents, a lot of sad family, a lot of sad friends, but we rejoice in the fact. We rejoice in the fact that, God, you have spoken a word into each and every one of their lives. You have spoken clearly into each and every one of their lives, and you have given them purpose. Hear me on this. God has given you purpose. God has given you reason. You do not exist on this planet just to take up space. God has put a purpose and a plan in your life, and He is beginning to see that to fruition, and He will see it to the end. You can have confidence in Him on that. So God, it's not a competition to see who's going to do the most great things. It is not going to be a pass or fail. This is going to be about seeking out who you are and loving after God with all your heart. But Lord, we ask that in their times when they're struggling and they're coming against opposition, that God, that you would miraculously bring people into their lives to encourage them and to the fellowship here, to the people staying here, they are going to rely on your prayers and you remembering them and praying over them. So God, we love each and every one of them. We long to see success, not only just in their life here as far as everything that they set out to do, but more importantly, God, we desire to see spiritually things happen and explode, and not for the glory of FFM, but for the glory of your kingdom and your honor, Lord. So we thank you for them. We praise you. God, take them, keep them safe wherever they go. And that as young people are sitting here, the younger people who are looking up to them and seeing this group go, Lord, that they would work. This group here would work harder and work longer to make the next group that you raise up to be far greater than what they could have ever been. So, Lord, we love them. We thank you for them. And, God, we release them now to go and to chase after and to follow after what you have called them to do. In Jesus' name, amen. Take time to come up and love on them. Give them some encouragement, and just please don't forget they need your prayers in the worst possible way. Thank you for coming, and you are dismissed.